Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with Master Certified Coach Ray LeCara Jr. He dedicates his time helping people of all ages achieve academic and personal success through his authentic embassy business. Ray has worked with every grade level, K through 12, in public and private education, in the traditional classroom and online. He has also taught adults in the corporate environment as an award-winning trainer. As an author, he has published multiple books of fiction, earning accolades for his short stories and novels. Enjoy this interview.
Well, thanks for taking a minute out today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Oh, man. Same with me, man. Before we get into your life and what you're doing, which is wonderful work, the last couple of years, plus has been quite tumultuous with COVID. How did you get through that time period, and how has it changed the way that you live your life and conduct your business now that we're kind of coming out and the world's waking up again?
It was communicating with the outside world that kept, I'd like to say kept me sane, but I would say more focused than anything else. During that time, I worked a lot with young people, 21 different countries, and what was wonderful about it was it helped crowd out the noise that was in the media and all the things that were going on, because every single time I was able to connect with real people, young people, and watch them smile, hear them talk. To me, that was the reality, and that is what centered me. So I really believe that that's what got me through it. I didn't pay as much attention to all the stuff that was going on because I was just so focused on working with others. But I really believe that right there was the true. That was the reality. Even though everything else was going on, to me, that was the reality. In terms of changing our lives, my wife and I have always been the type where we've just been very grateful for every moment. And when things began to shut down in March of that, 2020, we really just said, look, we're going to do everything we can to get through this together, come what may, and just continue to be as grateful as we can for every moment that we have.
I think that's the key. Those were brilliant things, tamping down the noise, and I think you taking care of the younger people on the planet is huge. And I had a couple teenagers, and I do at home now, and that was my thing, was how they were going to conceptualize it, because people like us have had decades to deal with this. And our reality never went through a pandemic before, so you take that and apply that to a younger brain, and I'm in the public education arena. I'm a technician for a K-12 school district. So I go into all the buildings and see the kids. And I remember at one point, one of the teachers looked at me probably around 2021 and said, I want you to wrap your head around this idea. These kindergartners that are coming in here with masks and looking around and freaking out about terms, this is their beginning. This is their reality. And it just kind of freaked me out for a minute. I was like, wow, they don't know anything else. Now we do. We have a barometer to take ourselves on a pendulum, but they don't. So I think it's wonderful that you're doing this for the younger people, because I think there's a regression that went into them. There's going to be a resiliency as they get older, I think, but I think there's a regression that needs to be overcome and needs to be acknowledged from a mental health standpoint.
That's why it's important to, real quick, one of the things that my wife went through was when all of a sudden everybody was isolated, and this is what a lot of people go through. All of a sudden her routine was disrupted. And then all of a sudden, especially when you're an adult, when your routine is disrupted, what is my purpose? What am I going to do? So all of a sudden everything is in chaos. And one of the things we did is we sat down and said, okay, let's come up with, and we did this intentionally, let's come up with a new routine so that becomes the focus, rather than just having that focus beyond the negativity or beyond the, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I think we need to do that regardless of the pandemic. We need to do that in our everyday lives so that we can find balance when those things throw us off. And it can actually be the extreme. You may have something that is extremely exciting and rewarding, but we want to try to remain somewhat balanced and not get too excited, because then when something else comes up, we fall pretty hard. So how can we find that balance? And it's really just about reevaluating as much as possible. For the young people, COVID felt like a weekend, several months long. So it was nice to see for those that were taking extra classes or trying to do different things or talking with their friends or trying to get those things helped, because it wasn't just all about COVID and the surreal nature of, oh my goodness, things are getting better. Then no, they're not getting better. Things are getting better. So I think that that's also an important component, is we need to be distracted by doing things that, hey, wait a minute, I have this time. Let me read. I have this time. Let me do this. Let me work on a new project, or let me work on a new skill. And if we can do that, that helps to also build that resiliency, because we're not spending every single day falling down that rabbit hole, just focused on that one negative thing.
Yeah, when you say balance, you're talking to a Libra, so I get that at my core. And, my son's special needs, and at the time he was 16, his two favorite things in the world in March of 2020 were school and baseball. So when that happened, you pivot, you just have to find a way. You do, and there was a lot of things. Like for me, I do a lot of jazz radio. And I have a stepdaughter too. And I would go out with them, and they would listen to me do these interviews with jazz musicians, jazz musicians are some of the most amazing specimens on the planet, absolutely the most talented, grounded. So anyway, it's all about how you kind of tackle it. So let's stay in school here, and I'm going to take you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of them looks up at you and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Sure. Help people discover who they are. That's what I would tell that young person. Because when we're young, we're searching to find what am I going to do when I grow up. But there are also adults who are still trying to figure out what they want to do and who they want to be when they grow up. So I would say help people to discover who they are so they can be the best at everything and anything that they do.
So when you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
One of the hardest things, I remember right after I graduated college, I'm sitting in an interview, and it was a principal or a superintendent, and it stunned me. I don't know why this was a surprise, but I was asked who's my role model. And I fed a line that I thought they wanted to hear, as opposed to who I looked up to, which at the time I really didn't have a role model. So going back to the third grade, I didn't really think about much at that time. I think today's third graders probably have more of an idea than I did in third grade. It wasn't until I was probably in secondary school and high school where I began to think about what I could possibly do. And that's actually where my work comes from now, because at that time, I didn't know what was available. I didn't know what I could do, what was possible. I just remember seeing so many other people that I felt were more talented, more physically able, and I really just, it was something that wasn't on my radar. I did not know at that time.
Are you happy with how everything's turned out?
Yes. You are who you are through your experiences. So most definitely. And I'm not one to, I've been asked sometimes, what would you do differently? Well, that's kind of a moot point, because you might end up in a different place. So we go through experiences intentionally to help us with what is going to come next. And I don't know that I would be as appreciative and grateful for what I have now if I hadn't gone through what I went through before.
So all of these things that lead up to who you are right now start in childhood. Talk to me a little bit about growing up, your childhood, and how these seeds got in you to want to help people and to want to go to another level like you do.
The things that we see in front of us help to shape us. So sometimes it isn't necessarily directed at us, but it's what we're observing. And I remember observing bus drivers and teachers just being incredible human beings when I was younger. And they were also very kind to me. So I think that's where that came from. And I can even remember at the high school level, I would watch my teachers where something would be going on with them personally, and you'd see a teacher come in and say, "Hey, I got your class. Don't worry about it. You know, go ahead, take off, do what you have to do." And I just remember seeing that, saying, "Wow, what a group of people," or "How wonderful that is." So I think that's where that came from. Just watching these people day in and day out care for other people, and even caring for their peers, and not shying away from showing that. I think that's where that came from.
So talk to me a little bit about, we're all on this journey here to get things done in our day, and I'm curious, what is it that motivates you? What is it each day when you wake up? What is it that drives you to do what you do?
I'm going to go back to the kids talking about COVID there for a moment. It's really looking for that response from whomever you're working with. It's knowing that because you have that direct contact with someone. So if I work with a coaching client, or if I work with a student, or depending on what I'm doing, it's always that direct connection and watching the response, seeing that they're happy, seeing that they are engaged. I think that's really the driving force. I think everybody wants to have a purpose. Everybody wants to do something worthwhile. So many people aren't sure how to do that. I've been blessed to teach and train and work with a variety of people, and I keep coming back to that same. What keeps me coming back to that is just knowing that it's a deeper connection, knowing that they've gotten something that they'll be able to carry with them long after we're done. So I think that's what drives me, is knowing that is possible and that we're helping people in a profound and authentic way.
So the other thing, too, is we are only as good, I think, sometimes as the people we look up to. Who's been a role model or a hero for you in your life?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, right? I had no idea. And then having that question asked when I was just a young person, it came out so artificial. My heroes today are really some of the students I've had in my life, actually. Just watching how they have grown. One hero is a student who passed away at a young age, and just how she fought through her illness, how much she cared for her family. She was just an amazing individual. And I hope I have that strength moving forward. But those are my heroes. I have another friend who passed away when I was in college, and she was the secretary at the university where I worked, and I worked in the English department. just again another amazing individual, and just the way that she looked at life, her personality, just everything about her and how she lived her life was something that even to this day, all these years later, has such a profound influence. So those are two of my role models.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and talk to them, who would it be? Who would you like to meet?
You stumped me, Joe. Not to cop out of the answer, I'm grateful to meet anybody. One of the things that I share during my conversation courses is that one of the easiest way to have conversation is to be interested in knowing more about the person or about what they do. And if we look at it that way, everybody has something incredible to share. And so, in that respect, I'd be happy to talk to anybody. Doesn't matter what their station is in life or their title. So at this time, trying to think about who would I really like to meet. Anybody. And I know that sounds like a cop-out.
No.
But I really don't. I know we have our. We might look up to certain people, or we're fans of certain people. But I respect what people do, and I just find conversation with others, no matter who you are, to be an incredible thing, because everybody has something special to share. What people have to say is important, and I'm always willing to listen. So,
kind of piggybacking off of what motivates you every day, when you get back at the end of a day and lean back and think about your day, how do you quantify a good day?
So years ago, when I was a teacher, in a traditional teacher in the academic classroom, I think I'm busier today than I've ever been. But when you're doing something like that, you're busy. Your time is really for someone else or for something else. So it just feels like you're spinning your wheels sometimes and not really going anywhere. And at that time, what I would do is I'd have these to-do lists for the week. So it'd be academic. It might be what I'm doing at home, different things like that. And I would quantify based on how much I was able to get done during the weekend. So on Monday morning, I was going to have a great day if I got through what I needed to get through during the weekend. And if I didn't, I felt like I had this weight on my shoulders. And so that had to change. And again, that's something I also share with people in the coaching now. How do I quantify things today? Well, first of all, the way I organize my entire day is different. The way I organize the entire week is different. And it's really about allowing yourself, you have to build boundaries and allow yourself moments to recharge, know what's going to take a lot out of you, so that at the end of the day, it's not, oh, I made it through today. It's, okay, here's what worked, here's what we have to work on, or here's what we have to improve. And so it's a different mindset. So at the end of the day, I pretty much have I might have appointments, I might have some certain goals set up that I want to get through the day, but for the most part, the way I gauge that is how much value was I able to bring to the people that I touch base with. And so long as every day I'm moving forward in some way, then that's a positive thing. So it can be baby steps, it can be leaps and bounds, but as long as every day we're moving forward in some way towards a greater goal, that's how I gauge things today.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, but ultimately you're in control. You live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, that's good, right? I mean, that's the one of the things again I talk about in one of my classes is there's how you perceive yourself, how others perceive you, and how you think others perceive you. So how do I perceive myself? My wife and I transitioned from the East Coast to the West Coast in 2017. I am incredibly driven now because there is no middleman. When I work with people, I get to work directly with people. And so when you do that, then your effort, or I should say the result, is based on your effort. And so in terms of who I think I am, someone who is very driven and someone who really wants to see or bring out the best in anybody that I meet or come across. And it can be an academic class, it can be a coaching session, it can be other projects that I work on, but what can I do to help bring out the best in you? And one of the areas I work on is authenticity. So how can we help you to be as true to who you are as possible? And so I'm driven to do that, but I also try very hard to model that. So I would say that's who I am.
Ray, thank you for opening up. Before we scoot out here, I want to make sure that everyone out there that wants to know more about you and what you do in your life and your services, where is the best place on the web for them to go?
Sure. AuthenticEmbassy.com. That's AuthenticEmbassy.com. They'll be able to learn everything about me and about what I do. That would be the perfect spot.
Ray, hey man, thank you for opening up. Thank you for what you're doing for the youth of the world. It's indispensable. I appreciate you opening up your life a little bit, and have a great 2023, man.
Joe, likewise. And again, I wasn't aware of the background that you had working in education. So thank you for all you do, not just with your interviews and your talk shows, but for also the work that you do with young people. So thank you for today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.